Hey, welcome back to Next Act Ninjas, the number one podcast for mastering your health and wealth longevity. I'm your host, Rachael Van Pelt, and I am so excited to be here with you today talking about one of my all time favorite topics, right sizing versus downsizing. I know you've heard the term downsizing. It's thrown around a lot when people are approaching retirement. It conjures up images of cleaning out closets, selling off furniture, moving into a cramped condo, or even a retirement community. Some folks find this idea liberating, while others, I think, find it downright unsettling. But what if there's a slightly different twist, something more customized, more personal, less about shrinking your life and more about transforming it? That is the idea behind right sizing. Today, I want to explore why right sizing is probably a better approach for those of you who want more than your traditional downsized retirement. It's ideal for those who want to thrive, to explore, to squeeze every bit of joy out of life for as long as possible. Now, I think we all know the typical narrative. We hit our 60s or maybe even earlier, and we start asking ourselves, is it time to downsize? Should we move to a smaller place now that the kids are gone? Or should we start thinking about where we want to age in place? Those questions come from a well-meaning place, don't they? They stem from the notion that our big family homes no longer necessary. Maybe a smaller home with less expenses, less hassle is going to fit us better. And hey, if your goal is to radically pare down and simplify your life, then that traditional idea of downsizing might just fit the bill. But we're not all the same, are we? Our goals, our interests, our social lives, our family dynamics, they vary wildly, don't they? Maybe you're someone who still wants room for a workshop or an art studio. Maybe you have kids or grandkids scattered across different states and you envision them visiting for extended stretches. Or maybe you just love to entertain. Whatever the case may be, there's not a one size fits all approach. That's why I love the concept of right sizing. You aren't necessarily making your life smaller. You're making sure that your living situation, and of course the lifestyle that goes with it, fits exactly who you are and, importantly, who you are becoming. When you shift your perspective from less to more of a Goldilocks just right, you are opening the door to all kinds of possibilities. In other words, by right sizing, we're talking about the process of intentionally choosing or creating a living space that matches our personal, financial, and emotional needs, not just for now, but the next phase of life. It's optimizing your environment and your lifestyle so you can invest energy creating your best next act. Now, that certainly could mean purchasing a smaller home. But it might also mean moving to a place that's the same size, just designed a bit differently. You might relocate to a property with a better layout, something that's a little more convenient for you, one that's closer to friends or family, or in a region that supports your newfound passions, passion for pickleball or community theater, whatever it is. It's less about square footage and more about aligning your environment with your lifestyle. Let's put it another way. Downsizing focuses on cutting back, reducing space, reducing stuff, reducing costs. Whereas right sizing focuses more on customizing your living situation for a long-term quality of life. It's applying your longevity mindset to where and how you want to live. Sometimes that's smaller, sometimes it's lateral, and in some cases, maybe it's even a trade up to a new location that better suits your next act. It's all about fit, like a perfectly tailored suit. Downsizing also has this undertone of sacrifice, doesn't it? You're letting go of space, parting with cherished items, and cutting back your lifestyle. It smacks of, I'm getting too old for all of this, right? And that can leave us with this lingering sense of loss, almost as if we're saying, the good times are behind me, so I'd better shrink my life. Rightsizing, on the other hand, flips the script. Instead of focusing on reducing for reduction's sake, it's about finding the perfect fit for who you are today and who you want to become. Financially, downsizing tends to focus on just one thing: cutting costs, freeing up cash, lowering monthly bills. Whereas rightsizing still respects your budget, of course, but it also invites you to think about how to put your resources to work. Maybe you're looking to maintain a big enough home so you can host family holidays without having to visit all of your loved ones. Maybe you want to travel 3 months out of the year, so you look for a lock and leave kind of condo in a gated community. Whatever the case may be, rightsizing encourages you to ask yourself, how do I optimize my money, my time, my energy, so I can live my life to the fullest? Emotionally, downsizing sometimes feels like you're closing a chapter that you're maybe not ready to close just yet. There can be a heaviness to that, a sense of giving up your family home, trying to fit your entire life into a smaller space. Rightsizing, by contrast, feels more like an intentional step forward, a leveling up, if you will. It's an opportunity to shape your environment in a way that supports your passions, your health, your relationships. It's not just a real estate move, it's a statement that says, I get to design this next chapter of my life in my own terms. And I'm excited about that. Lifestyle integration is the biggest distinction. With downsizing, you're typically cutting out features, the kinds of things that you maybe think are superfluous. But what if those so-called extras are the very thing that bring you joy? Rightsizing asks, what matters most to me? And then make sure to keep those or maybe even enhance those elements. Just think about it. If you are tailoring a suit or a dress, you don't just hack away the fabric. No, you shape it to fit you precisely. And the same is true for your next act. You don't necessarily want to squeeze into a smaller house. You want a home that elevates your day-to-day life. Look, a lot of us have worked decades raising our families, building careers, investing in our home and our retirement. Then we reach a point where we start asking, is this all there is, or can I still keep growing and expanding? Rightsizing tackles that question with optimism, adventure, creativity. When you decide to rightsize, you're not just giving up space. You're finding ways to free up time and energy to direct towards those pursuits that keep you engaged and passionate. That's what keeps you young at heart. And of course, you're also protecting against the snap decisions to shrink life before you're ready, the kind of decisions that lead often to regrets. Rightsizing also takes into account your health goals, your desire to remain active, your community connections. Maybe you're an avid skier who wants a home in the mountains, or perhaps you're a social butterfly who would prefer a townhome in a vibrant, walkable neighborhood. Do you see how that flips the script? You're not just giving up your life, you're gaining exactly what you desire. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds great, but how do I actually know what the right size is? And this is where we get practical. Rightsizing doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by accident. It's a highly intentional process. First, you have to envision your future, don't you? Take a bit of time, maybe over a cup of coffee in the morning or your leisurely walk. Take some time to imagine what you want your next decade to look like. Are you prioritizing travel? Are you spending quality time with grandchildren? Are you launching a second career from home? Connect with your future self. Picture that version of you as vividly as you can. Really feel the emotions of living your life to the full. Getting crystal clear around who you are and how you live is foundational to rightsizing. Without it, you're going to likely end up choosing a place that saves money but fails to support a lifestyle that brings you joy. Once you have that vision in mind, walk through your current home. Note what you use or what you simply store and ignore. You might discover entire rooms that you barely step into, like a formal dining area that's only used once a year, or a big basement where boxes go to gather dust. On the flip side, pay attention to the spaces that you adore. Maybe you love to read in your sunny garden room, or you love doing woodworking in your extra garage bay. What exactly are the spaces that you would never want to live without? By understanding these details, it's going to help you figure out where you can scale back and what are the non-negotiables for your new home. And next, factor in the environment you want. Is it urban? Is it rural? Is it near mountains or water? What's the climate like? Do you want to experience the change of seasons, or do you prefer it warm year-round? What amenities are nearby? How good is the healthcare? Is everything you want easily accessible? Location plays an important role in your day-to-day happiness, especially in this chapter of life. Maybe you've realized that you really dislike driving and would thrive in a walkable neighborhood with cafes and cultural events. Or perhaps you want scenic views and plenty of trails because you long to be closer to nature and hiking. As you begin to research these areas, whether it's across town or across the country, think about the lifestyle each location supports. The right neighborhood can foster community, creativity, convenience, and that can turn your next act into an adventure. Of course, finances still matter. Rightsizing isn't about ignoring costs. You're still going to balance finances with those lifestyle goals. So I want you to sit down and map out the reality of what you can comfortably afford. Look at potential mortgages, property taxes, insurance, maintenance costs. If you're selling your current home, figure out how much equity you can free up. Can you pay cash for that next home? You might be pleasantly surprised by how that money can fund not just a new home, but maybe even have a little left over for travel or hobbies, or maybe even an investment property that cash flows. I highly recommend giving your potential new lifestyle a test run if it's at all possible. Rent a vacation home in the area that you're considering, or stay with a friend who lives there. If you're aiming for a condo, spend a week in one. If you're thinking rural, try an Airbnb or something to gauge if it's too remote. This try before you buy approach can save you from making a move that you later regret. Taking this step by step makes right-sizing your next act much less daunting and much more exciting. It puts you firmly in control, and that sense of control is priceless when you're designing a life that's meant to be more fulfilling than ever. Now, even with the best of intentions, there's going to be a few stumbling blocks that could trip you up. One of the biggest missteps I've seen is going too small too fast. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of simplifying, especially if you've been dealing with a large home and yard for decades. You might be thinking, let's cut this down to the bare minimum. I'm tired of maintaining all of this, but be careful. If you go from a sprawling family home to a tiny 2-bedroom condo, you could end up feeling very claustrophobic. I've seen it multiple times. Before you know it, you're house hunting again, and that can be financially and emotionally draining. So aim for that sweet spot, a space that's not too small that you feel constricted or regretful. Another common pitfall is putting cost savings above everything else. Of course, money matters, and yes, downsizing or rightsizing can improve your financial situation. But remember, your home is where you spend the bulk of your time. Even if you've recently retired and you plan to travel a bunch, you're still going to want a cozy place that feels like a haven when you return. If you prioritize cheap over comfortable and convenient, you might just end up resenting the house you're in. And that's the opposite of the freedom that we're after. Keep your finances in check, but also factor in the intangible benefits of feeling truly at home. I think it's also surprisingly easy to underestimate renovations or improvements that you're going to need in a new place. Maybe you find that great property that's technically a perfect size and location, but it's outdated, or the previous owner just didn't do any upkeep. If you're not prepared to invest the time and money to make it more livable in a way that suits you, you could end up stuck in renovation purgatory. And that's not much fun, is it? Especially if your main goal was to simplify, to reduce stress, to free up time for travel or hobbies. And remember, new builds, they're not always better. Builders often do the bare minimum, and that leaves buyers to customize later. So be honest with yourself about how much of a fixer-upper you're willing to tackle and whether that's going to line up with the life stage you're in. And lastly, don't forget to think about your future needs, especially your health, your mobility, your social connectivity. I've seen people move into a place with 3 flights of stairs because it was cheap or it came with a great view, only to later realize that those stairs are far too much to handle on a daily basis. Or they move far from their long-standing circle of friends and end up feeling isolated, wishing that they had taken community and social events into better account. Rightsizing is about creating the best possible setup for your future. If you anticipate living in your new home for a decade or two, think about how you'll feel 5, 10, 15 years from now. The extra attention that you pay now can save you a world of inconvenience later. When you approach these potential pitfalls with open eyes and a solid plan, you're going to set yourself up for success. And you'll find that right-sizing can be a truly joyful and liberating experience. It's your chance to shape your living environment to perfectly match your desired lifestyle. Now, I want to point out, for some people, the classic idea of downsizing is still the perfect move. If you know that you really don't need much space, you can't wait to minimize upkeep and expenses, then downsizing can be absolutely liberating. That's a purely financial decision that could open up a whole new chapter of low-stress living. Or maybe you've realized that you want to spend more time traveling. You don't need much home base at all. In that case, downsizing or maybe even renting is exactly right for you. The point is, downsizing is not all bad. I just want you to consider the lifestyle you're truly after before you jump in. Sometimes smaller is better. But if you're worried about giving up too much and shrinking your life too soon, then right-sizing is probably what you're after. Change can be scary though, can't it? Just the thought of uprooting from a home filled with memories and switching up your routine often causes more than just a little anxiety. But here's my pro tip. Turn that fear into curiosity. Ask yourself, what amazing experiences could I have once I let go of this home or anything else that no longer serves me? If you feel a tingle of excitement when you think about the possibilities, then I know you're on the right track. And guess what? You get to keep those precious memories with you no matter where you live. Moving doesn't wipe away all the good times you've had. You're always going to have those in your heart. Instead, I think you'll find that moving on ushers in a whole new chapter of joyful moments. Ultimately, right-sizing is about freedom, the freedom to shape a life that excites you every day, the freedom to invest your money where it matters, and the freedom to design an environment that supports your well-being. It's about ensuring your home is in sync with your life goals, not simply shrinking space for the sake of it. So take a moment to reflect on what you want. Do you want to be near certain family members or near a lake or the mountains for the weekend adventures? Are you craving a simpler lifestyle, but with just enough space to host your grandchildren or friends for a weekend getaway? Are you dreaming of splitting your time between two destinations to chase the sun? Think about these things, make a plan, and let your heart guide you. Because at the end of the day, none of us want to look back and say, I wish I'd just stayed put and never tried anything. That's not the path to fulfillment. What we're after is living fully, passionately, vibrantly, however that looks for you. And when your home environment supports that, it is truly magical. I hope that today's conversation has sparked some new ideas or just opened your eyes to new possibilities. I encourage you to jot down your thoughts about what just right looks like in your living situation. Discuss it with your partner, your family, or a trusted friend. You might be surprised how energizing it feels to dream about a future that fits you perfectly. And of course, if you're thinking about making a move, whether that's a classic downsize or a more strategic right size, hop on a discovery call. I'm here to help you assess all of your options. My goal is to make sure that you thrive in your next act. I want you to enjoy the best of both worlds, a vibrant home life and the health and wealth to pursue your passions. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone you know who's also designing their lifestyle for longevity. Until next time, live well, love more, age less, my friends.